Transform yourself, because my course, Broadcast Yourself, is now open. In 8 weeks, I'm going to personally mentor you and show you how to start your own podcast and how to turn it into a business. I've done this with thousands of students, and you've watched my entire journey at London Real for the last 7 years. We've now touched 100 million people from around the world and turned this into an 8-figure business. I'm going to show you how to do it with my 8-week online accountability course. There is nothing like this out there. And if you really want to have 8 episodes up on iTunes of your very own podcast, learn how to connect with influencers, start JV partnerships, click on the link, pull the trigger, and join me. I promise you, it will change your life forever. It changed my life. I connected with people that I used to dream about. Now they're my friends. I've got a business around it, and every day I get to live my passion. Cool people come to my studio, and I get to hang out with them and learn from them. And honestly, my life will never be the same again, and I will never stop podcasting until the day I die, because it's really changed my life that much. So click on the link. This is only going to be open for a few days. This course always sells out, but I'm going to have a group of 100 people from around the world that are going to join us on this adventure. 8 weeks, you're going to have 8 episodes on iTunes. I promise that. I guarantee that, or you can have your money back. So click on the link. Let's do this adventure. It's going to be hella fun, and it's going to change your life. I'll see you on the inside.
If you can't control your own brain and your brain controls you, you're fucked. You got to tell your brain where you want to go and how you want to go and how you want to get there. What is in us, we have no idea until we start trying hard.
What defines the strongest man in history? And they'll all say the deadlift. Who can pick up the most weight from the floor to his hips? And that man's me. With the power of belief, achieved amazing things and proved to millions and millions of people that no matter where you come from, what you do, hard work and dedication can get you places.
Success is an empty thing. It will leave you empty. It's a filthy word. It's a nauseating word. In the end of the day, it's about being a craftsman and not being the success story. Sit down and do your fucking work.
Hey you, yes you. You're the one that has been stalking me all over the internet. You've been watching my ads, you've been going to my webinars, you've been reading my emails, and yet you haven't pulled the trigger. You haven't decided to join my business accelerator and be with me and a small group of people for the next 8 weeks and absolutely transform your life. I'm talking about, I'm going to get you vlogging to camera. I'm going to get you up the curve of social media. I'm going to get you looking at your market opportunity map and figure out how to take that passion and turn it to a business. But we're not done. Then I'm going to teach you how to turn it into a digital product. Then I'm going to show you how to do your own live webinar, and I'm going to show you how you can make money. This is a blueprint that's going to take you from nothing to a revenue generating business. That's exactly what we do. We've graduated over 5,000 students from 107 countries in the world, and we're crushing it here. We show people how to create these revenue generating businesses. And again, this blueprint works however you want to scale. It can be for 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 plus in revenues. And that's what we do on the inside. So what is stopping you, you know? And I know you've got a lot of fears out there. Everyone has fears. Oh, I don't know if I spend money online, maybe it's not the right thing to do. Look, I've been here for 9 years. You know, I've been teaching this Business Accelerator course for over 5 years, and we are getting amazing results. Our accountability system is second to none. I'm going to be with you live every single week. I've got team leaders. We've got an accountability doc. We've got everything to make you go into your fears. And that's what this is. This is a fear. But I also want to tell you this. If you do not pull the trigger now, and I'm closing this course out, this is the closest you're ever going to be to building this business. I know it because from here on out, you just get further and further away from ever having a mentor that's going to drag you kicking and screaming to your goal in real time. It's just not going to happen out there. So what you need to do is this. You need to take a deep breath. You need to pull the trigger, pull out that plastic and bang those numbers in there and trust the process. Trust me, trust London Real, because we have the track record and we are going to get you those results more so than you're ever going to get on your own. And let me ask you a question. What should you do? Should you read another book or listen to another podcast or watch another video on how to start a business? Or should you get with someone that has a proven record, that has built a business of London Real right in front of your own eyes, that has taught over 5,000 students and is there with you live for 8 weeks? You know the answer to that question, you know? And if you pull the trigger, I promise you, you will not regret this decision, and we're going to build you an incredible business. So like I said, pull out that plastic, bang in those digits. I'm going to see you on the first live call very, very shortly, and I look forward to getting you that incredible business that's going to change your life. It's going to change everything. Could change your location, your personal relationships, your impact on the world. This whole thing changed my life, and I want it to change yours. So pull the trigger, and I will see you on the inside.
Thoughts are the language of the brain, feelings are the language of the body. And how you think and how you feel creates your state of being. Nobody changes until they change their energy. The moment you start feeling whole in gratitude, your healing begins.
We are actually born to be great, to feel great. If you learn to control the breath, the life force itself. I am showing this all through science, through this simple breathing technique. 30 breaths, fully in and letting go. You learn to be the alchemist of your own body and your own mind. You are born to be more than the normal standard, to be super, man.
Peace, love, enjoy, relax. That's what it's all about, and that's why we're here.
I am super excited to start with our brand new URL, and that is freedomplatform.tv. Go there right now, and I'll be sharing screenshots throughout this broadcast here. This is our brand new dedicated URL, dedicated website, where all of our censored content will be located now and into eternity. This is all the episodes with David Icke. These are our conversations with Dr. Rashid Buttar, both of them. Both of our conversations with Dr. Judy Mikovits, our conversations with Dr. Kaufman, with Robert Kennedy. Everything that was banned on other channels and major technology platforms is all in one central place, freedomplatform.tv. Go check it out right now and share it. Again, that's our dedicated website and our dedicated URL. Now we have a permanent home for everything, and it's not just the interviews, it's also any other content that has been banned. We will be uploading there as well, including Dr. Judy Mikovits. She had a presentation that was literally stripped from her own website. So that's on the platform as well as the individual video clips that you can download from the various episodes and upload to any of your social media platforms. So again, go there right now. It's freedomplatform.tv. And you can see everything that we've got up there. Again, this is all the uncensored content, the downloadable content, the clips, the presentations, and it's the start of what we are building here at the Digital Freedom Platform. Again, this is just the beginning, but I wanted to show you this because the team has been working super hard on this. Again, this is exactly what we were talking about a few weeks ago when we decided to launch the fundraising campaign for the Digital Freedom Platform, and finally wanted to show this to you. Of course, we built this just like we said we would, but we've got much more to do. And as I said on the last broadcast, we are not here to take part, we are here to take over.
Fame definitely got some negatives that I feel like people don't consider, like the lack of privacy.
So money doesn't buy happiness.
Oh, fuck no. Chasing money and girls is not what makes you happy. I think happiness comes more from having good friendships and doing things with your friends.
The significance of being human is just this. For all other creatures, evolution, how they evolve is fixed by nature. For the human being, your evolution is in your hands. If you strive, you can evolve whichever way you want.
We're in a dark age. We've lost our compass. We don't know who we are. We don't know where we want to go. What is to be done?
It's going to take some consciousness change to get us out of the box we're in.
La maldición de ayahuasca, nosotros podemos conectar con esa persona y le da cuenta dónde está la raíz del problema de él. Pues ahí se trabaja.
Sometimes I feel anxious and unappreciative of the things I have.
There's no such thing as work-life balance. There are work-life choices and you make them and they have consequences.
What we don't understand about psychedelics is a very thick book. They can help you orient yourself morally, but look the hell out.
You don't always get what you want with ayahuasca, but you always get what you need.
The diseases of individual are the diseases of the world. Our culture's soul is severely wounded.
Humanitarian crisis growing by the day.
And feminism needs men who have the courage to stand by the women in their lives and the women in society. And not too many men have that, but it's amazing when you see men who actually do that.
People need to be more brave in their own lives, at work. I'm here to live and tell the tale that you can fight the machine and still survive.
Would you like to start your own business, but just don't know how to get started? Well, I have good news, because I've just launched a free service for new entrepreneurs. It's a consultation call with a member of my team to discuss your ideas and give you a step-by-step program to make your business a reality. I know that starting your own business can be a huge challenge, but with the right strategy and mentorship, your dream is just one step away. But these spots are limited, so click on the link below to book your call now.
War is a nightmare. War is hell. But war is also an incredible teacher.
You can forget that there's evil people out there. You need to be reminded of that. The thing that reveals human nature is when human beings are put in traumatic scenarios.
Take ownership. Take extreme ownership.
If your team isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing, it's your fault. The will to fight is the will to kill, and it's the will to die. And those are some pretty big wills that you need to have. There's no one that wishes for peace more than people that have been to war. When the war drums sound, it's my friends that are going to fight. People are going to die on both sides, and yeah, that's why they say war is hell. It's not one battle. It's a campaign. Win the campaign and win the war.
Okay, folks, it's time to pull the trigger and transform yourself, because my course, Broadcast Yourself, is now open. In 8 weeks, I'm going to personally mentor you and show you how to start your own podcast and how to turn it into a business. I've done this with thousands of students, and you've watched my entire journey at London Real for the last 7 years. We've now touched 100 million people from around the world and turned this into an 8-figure business. I'm going to show you how to do it with my 8-week online accountability course. There is nothing like this out there. And if you really want to have 8 episodes up on iTunes of your very own podcast, learn how to connect with influencers, start JV partnerships, click on the link, pull the trigger, and join me. I promise you, it will change your life forever. It changed my life. I connected with people that I used to dream about. Now they're my friends. I've got a business around it, and every day I get to live my passion. Cool people come to my studio, and I get to hang out with them and learn from them. And honestly, my life will never be the same again, and I will never stop podcasting until the day I die, because it's really changed my life that much. So click on the link. This is only going to be open for a few days. This course always sells out, but I'm going to have a group of 100 people from around the world that are going to join us on this adventure. 8 weeks, you're going to have 8 episodes on iTunes. I promise that. I guarantee that, or you can have your money back. So click on the link. Let's do this adventure. It's going to be hella fun, and it's going to change your life. I'll see you on the inside.
If you can't control your own brain and your brain controls you, you're fucked. You got to tell your brain where you want to go and how you want to go and how you want to get there. What is in us, we have no idea until we start trying hard.
What defines the strongest man in history? And they'll all say the deadlift. Who can pick up the most weight from the floor to his hips? And that man's me. With the power of belief, achieve amazing things and prove to millions and millions of people that no matter where you come from, what you do, hard work and dedication can get you places.
Success is an empty thing. It will leave you empty. It's a filthy word. It's a nauseating word. In the end of the day, it's about being a craftsman and not being the success story. Sit down and do your fucking work.
Hey you, yes you. You're the one that has been stalking me all over the internet. You've been watching my ads, you've been going to my webinars, you've been reading my emails, and yet you haven't pulled the trigger. You haven't decided to join my business accelerator and be with me and a small group of people for the next 8 weeks and absolutely transform your life. I'm talking about, I'm going to get you vlogging to camera. I'm going to get you up the curve of social media. I'm going to get you looking at your market opportunity map and figure out how to take that passion and turn it to a business. But we're not done. Then I'm going to teach you how to turn it into a digital product. Then I'm going to show you how to do your own live webinar, and I'm going to show you how you can make money. This is a blueprint that's going to take you from nothing to a revenue generating business. That's exactly what we do. We've graduated over 5,000 students from 107 countries in the world, and we're crushing it here. We show people how to create these revenue generating businesses. And again, this blueprint works however you want to scale. It can be for 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 plus in revenues. And that's what we do on the inside. So what is stopping you, you know? And I know you've got a lot of fears out there. Everyone has fears. Oh, I don't know if I spend money online, maybe it's not the right thing to do. Look, I've been here for 9 years. You know, I've been teaching this Business Accelerator course for over 5 years, and we are getting amazing results. Our accountability system is second to none. I'm going to be with you live every single week. I've got team leaders. We've got an accountability doc. We've got everything to make you go into your fears. And that's what this is. This is a fear. But I also want to tell you this. If you do not pull the trigger now, and I'm closing this course out, this is the closest you're ever going to be to building this business. I know it, because from here on out, you just get further and further away from ever having a mentor that's gonna drag you kicking and screaming to your goal in real time. It's just not gonna happen out there. So what you need to do is this. You need to take a deep breath. You need to pull the trigger, pull out that plastic and bang those numbers in there and trust the process. Trust me, trust London Real, because we have the track record and we are going to get you those results more so than you're ever going to get on your own. And let me ask you a question. What should you do? Should you read another book or listen to another podcast or watch another video on how to start a business? Or should you get with someone that has a proven record, that has built a business of London Real right in front of your own eyes, that has taught over 5,000 students and is there with you live for 8 weeks? You know the answer to that question, you know? And if you pull the trigger, I promise you, you will not regret this decision, and we're gonna build you an incredible business. So like I said, pull out that plastic, bang in those digits. I'm gonna see you on the first live call very, very shortly, and I look forward to getting you that incredible business that's gonna change your life. It's gonna change everything. Could change your location, your personal relationships, your impact on the world. This whole thing changed my life, and I want it to change yours. So pull the trigger, and I will see you on the inside.
Thoughts are the language of the brain, feelings are the language of the body. And how you think and how you feel creates your state of being. Nobody changes until they change their energy. The moment you start feeling whole in gratitude, your healing begins.
We are actually born to be great, to feel great. If you learn to control the breath, the life force itself. I am showing this all through science, through this simple breathing technique. 30 breaths, fully in and letting go. You learn to be the alchemist of your own body and your own mind. You are born to be more than the normal standard, to be super, man.
Peace, love, enjoy, relax. That's what it's all about, and that's why we're here.
I am super excited to start with our brand new URL, and that is freedomplatform.tv. Go there right now, and I'll be sharing screenshots throughout this broadcast here. This is our brand new dedicated URL, dedicated website, where all of our censored content will be located now and into eternity. This is all the episodes with David Icke. These are our conversations with Dr. Rashid Buttar, both of them. Both of our conversations with Dr. Judy Mikovits, our conversations with Dr. Kaufman, with Robert Kennedy. Everything that was banned on other channels and major technology platforms is all in one central place, freedomplatform.tv. Go check it out right now and share it. Again, that's our dedicated website and our dedicated URL. Now we have a permanent home for everything, and it's not just the interviews, it's also any other content that has been banned. We will be uploading there as well, including Dr. Judy Mikovits. She had a presentation that was literally stripped from her own website. So that's on the platform as well as the individual video clips that you can download from the various episodes and upload to any of your social media platforms. So again, go there right now. It's freedomplatform.tv. And you can see everything that we've got up there. Again, this is all the uncensored content, the downloadable content, the clips, the presentations, and it's the start of what we are building here at the Digital Freedom Platform. Again, this is just the beginning, but I wanted to show you this because the team has been working super hard on this. Again, this is exactly what we were talking about a few weeks ago when we decided to launch the fundraising campaign for the Digital Freedom Platform, and finally wanted to show this to you. Of course, we built this just like we said we would, but we've got much more to do. And as I said on the last broadcast, we are not here to take part, we are here to take over.
Fame definitely got some negatives that I feel like people don't consider. Like the lack of privacy.
So money doesn't buy happiness.
Oh, fuck no. Chasing money and girls is not what makes you happy. I think happiness comes more from having good friendships and doing things with your friends.
The significance of being human is just this. For all other creatures, evolution, how they evolve is fixed by nature. For the human being, your evolution is in your hands. If you strive, you can evolve whichever way you want.
We're in a dark age. We've lost our compass. We don't know who we are. We don't know where we want to go. What is to be done?
It's going to take some consciousness change to get us out of the box we're in.
La maldición de ayahuasca, nosotros podemos conectar con esa persona y le da cuenta dónde está la raíz del problema de él. Pues ahí se trabaja.
Sometimes I feel anxious and unappreciative of the things I have.
There's no such thing as work-life balance. There are work-life choices and you make them and they have consequences.
What we don't understand about psychedelics is a very thick book. They can help you orient yourself morally, but look the hell out.
You don't always get what you want with ayahuasca, but you always get what you need.
The diseases of individual are the diseases of the world. Our culture, soul, is severely wounded.
Humanitarian crisis growing by the day.
And feminism needs men who have the courage to stand by the women in their lives and the women in society. And not too many men have that, but it's amazing when you see men who actually do that.
People need to be more brave in their own lives, at work. I'm here to live and tell the tale that you can fight the machine and still survive.
Would you like to start your own business, but just don't know how to get started? Well, I have good news, because I've just launched a free service for new entrepreneurs. It's a consultation call with a member of my team to discuss your ideas and give you a step-by-step program to make your business a reality. I know that starting your own business can be a huge challenge, but with the right strategy and mentorship, your dream is just one step away. But these spots are limited, so click on the link below to book your call now.
War is a nightmare. War is hell. But war is also an incredible teacher.
You can forget that there's evil people out there. You need to be reminded of that. The thing that reveals human nature is when human beings are put in traumatic scenarios.
Take ownership. Take extreme ownership.
If your team isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing, it's your fault. The will to fight is the will to kill, and it's the will to die. And those are some pretty big wills that you need to have. There's no one that wishes for peace more than people that have been to war. When the war drums sound, it's my friends that are going to fight. People are going to die on both sides, and yeah, that's why they say war is hell. It's not one battle. It's a campaign. Win the campaign and win the war.
Okay, folks, it's time to pull the trigger and transform yourself, because my course, Broadcast Yourself, is now open. In 8 weeks, I'm going to personally mentor you and show you how to start your own podcast and how to turn it into a business. I've done this with thousands of students, and you've watched my entire journey at London Real for the last 7 years. We've now touched 100 million people from around the world and turned this into an 8-figure business. I'm going to show you how to do it with my 8-week online accountability course. There is nothing like this out there. And if you really want to have 8 episodes up on iTunes of your very own podcast, learn how to connect with influencers, start JV partnerships, click on the link, pull the trigger, and join me. I promise you, it will change your life forever. It changed my life. I connected with people that I used to dream about. Now they're my friends. I've got a business around it, and every day I get to live my passion. Cool people come to my studio, and I get to hang out with them and learn from them. And honestly, my life will never be the same again, and I will never stop podcasting until the day I die, because it's really changed my life that much. So click on the link. This is only going to be open for a few days. This course always sells out, but I'm going to have a group of 100 people from around the world that are going to join us on this adventure. 8 weeks, you're going to have 8 episodes on iTunes. I promise that. I guarantee that, or you can have your money. The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go? This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is... This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Lee Haney, the former American professional bodybuilder who was crowned the Mr. Olympia champion an incredible 8 consecutive times from 1984 to 1991, and considered one of the sport's greatest champions. You won your first event as a teenager in 1979 and are the only champion to remain undefeated before retiring from the sport at the age of 31. You were renowned for your pioneering science-based approach to training and nutrition, which allowed you to combine size with a classical physique. You have been critical of modern training techniques that leave many athletes with long-term injuries and irreversible damage, hence your mantra, stimulate, don't annihilate. Since you're retiring, you have trained professional athletes and celebrities while also helping young men achieve their potential through the HANEY Harvest House, your mentoring program that aims to create a clear definition of manhood. Lee, welcome to London Real. London Real.
Thank you, Brian. It's a pleasure to be here. Heard a lot about your show. Incredible.
Lee, it's so great to have you on here. And the truth is that we kind of owe our success and popularity to Mr. Olympia in some ways, because back in January 2013, when nobody was doing this independent broadcasting stuff, we had a guy on the show named Dorian Yates. And to be honest, Lee, I didn't know much about Dorian. And he came down, and I remember thinking we might need a bigger chair for this guy. You know, I just didn't know much about, who was going to show up. And the audience didn't either, because my audience didn't necessarily know who Mr. Olympia was. And when he sat down in the chair, his episode was our biggest episode ever at the time. And I think, Lee, people were surprised by how intelligent Dorian was, how articulate he was, how spiritual and how knowledgeable he was, because I think for some reason they expected a Mr. Olympia to be something else. And, I was wondering, maybe we can start off there, Lee, and tell me, what does the world not understand of what it takes for a bodybuilder to become Mr. Olympia, that champion on stage, all the sacrifice behind the scenes? What does the world not really know about what happens behind the scenes to get there?
Well, it takes a level of commitment, a super level of commitment, as I'm sure Dorian explained, while he was being interviewed and so forth. And by the way, Dorian is a great friend of mine. He's an incredible athlete, also an incredible competitor, during my era. So I have the greatest of respect for him. I mean, so we know what it takes to get there, and the discipline that goes into it and the stick-to-itness, it's a whole nother level. But such as that in any professional top-level athletes, there's a lot of professional athletes, but the ones that on the top of the ladder, the top of the chain, they're cut from a sort of a different type of mold. The commitment there, the commitment to diet, the commitment to time management, commitment to making sure where you need to be and doing what you need to do and not making excuses. There's a lot of athletes, they can find excuses as to why they're not committed to a specific thing, why I wasn't as good and well, it's okay to be second or third place. Well, hardcore nitty gritty athletes like myself or Dorian Yates, we don't feel good about second place. Second place in our book is for nothing but losers. We care about nothing but first place. And what does it take to get there? That's what a true top level champion mindset is all about.
I remember asking Dorian, how did he celebrate when he won Mr. Olympia? And he said, what do you mean celebrate? He said, I was supposed to win. I went home that night and I started training the next day.
That's exactly right. You have your meal. Okay. You went to work. You've been working for the last several months. Guess what? You got a raise. You get paid. You be smart with your investments, use your money wisely. Then you back to work the next couple of days. You give the body a little time to recover. Okay. Now we back to work. But the other thing too, is this thing inside of you, once you become number one, you don't want to lose that position. You don't want to lose that spotlight. So you're thinking ahead of time as to how do I stay here? What do I need to do differently than what I've done before to keep me here? Let me look at this training. Let me look at this nutrition. Let me analyze this supplementation. Let me do all of those things. It's going to keep me on the top, because when you're on the top, there's nowhere else to go but down. You got a lot of guys snapping at your heels. They're looking to take your place. So as a true champion, you want to make sure that don't happen. So you take your butt to work the next day.
It's very different from becoming the champion to staying the champion, to staying on top of that hill, because everybody wants a piece of that. And you got to get even better in order to hold that, right?
Yeah, that's true. And that's where it can get a little dicey, because you can tend to overtrain, which is, one of the statements that I adhere to is training to stimulate, not annihilate. It's easy to overtrain and not give the body enough time to recover when your mindset is that. So you really have to step back and balance it out and don't overload the systems, which I've been guilty of doing that. And of course, Dorian has been guilty of doing that. That's why he sustained some injuries during his training debut. Listen, when you're up there, you want to do everything you can to stay up there. And in doing so, you can actually do more harm than you can good. But hey, that's the price you pay for being a gladiator. We're not regular people. No top athlete is a regular person, which sometimes when I hear regular people like commentators make comments, well, he should have did this and that. I'm like, listen to these guys. They are not in our shoes. They don't know what it feels like to run or jump or to lift that your heart is about to jump out of your chest. They know nothing of that. Gladiators, at least in times past, they fought to the death in arenas. That's what they did. That's how they're made. That's their psyche. So, but thank God today, we have referees, we have restrictions and guidelines so they don't end up destroying ourselves or destroying those in which we compete against. So that's the only thing that changes is what's have the outcome. We have guidelines and we have restrictions. Other than that, that gladiator mindset still exists and will always exist in top level athletes. We are testosterone monsters. We're not guys who sit behind a desk and you know, and with a pencil or a typewriter. That's not who we are. Gladiators are gladiators. That's what top level professional athletes are. And it's, oh no, he's acting a certain way. Wait a minute, he acts a certain way because he geared a certain way.
There's a fine line between genius and insanity.
Exactly. Modern day gladiators.
You know, one of the things I realized when I was talking to Dorian is that as incredible as he was a champion, he was also incredibly knowledgeable. And I know to this day he trains a lot of athletes, but his knowledge of the body, of the stress systems, of the nutrition, of the recovery protocols was incredible when we dove deep into it. And you know, he would tell me, he said, Brian, you don't understand, there was no internet back then. I had no coach. All I had was my own experimentation, my own logbooks, and maybe a couple magazines or a passed around black and white book, you know, that I might have. And now I'm thinking about your era, Lee. You know, 8 years earlier, you must have had even less, and I know you didn't have a coach. Can you walk through some of the young guys these days as to what it was like back then, having to discover it for yourself and actually really create the science yourself?
Yes, you know, it was during an era in which there was very little information out there. You know, you had your magazines like Muscle and Fitness, then you had Iron Man, you had Muscle Training Illustrated, very, very few. And during that time, the magazines mainly consisted of training and nutrition. It wasn't as commercialized as you see them now. So it was all about real good quality knowledge. And then the other thing that was very good, I know growing up in my hometown, you would find some of the older guys in the gym and they would share with you different training principles. Okay, you want to do that, you don't want to do this. Okay, that's too much weight you're using. So those kinds of tips and principles that was handed down through the generations helped me to become the person that I am today as far as my knowledge of training, knowledge of nutrition. I mean, at the age of 11 years old, I asked my parents for a set of weights, you know, for Christmas, and they got them for me. And from inside of that little package of weights, there was a Charles Atlas book that had the basic principles of training, maybe one exercise per body part, the foundational exercises. And from those foundational exercises, everything else grew. But I stayed true to the principles that I had read there, which also matched up to the principles that was being given to me by some of the other senior weightlifters that I met at the YMCA. I met at some of the other gyms, such as Nautilus Fitness Centers and those kinds of things during that era. And then what I read in the magazine, you know, programs handed down by Robbie Robertson, Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know, Pete Grimkowski, Albert Beckles, which is from Great Britain, and, you know, Roy Callender, a lot of the different guys, Franco Colombo, who created these programs. And they were true to the science of it. It wasn't any craziness, and you didn't see what is called coaches helping you. These were guys who trained together. They had training partners. And so I implemented the tools of what I had learned from looking into and studying their exercise routines and so forth. And I entered my first bodybuilding show when I was 16 years old. Did very well, didn't win, didn't place, but I was told by the judge, you got a lot of great potential. And I continued to follow those principles. I learned as much as I could about nutrition through reading the magazines. I mean, I grew up in the country where, you know, sweet potatoes and yams was the mainstay. So it was pinto beans, so it was corn, so it was chicken, so it was eggs. So all of the good quality nutrients were there from day one, just from from growing up, from where I'm from. And so by implementing the training principles, good basic nutritional principles, I was able to imitate what I had read about, and my physique continued to grow and get better and better. So by the time I was 18, I entered my first regional show, which, let's back up, when I was 16, I entered my first show to Mr. South Carolina. Didn't place, as I mentioned earlier, but I did very well. A couple of years later, I entered the Mr. Palmetto won the show at the age of 18. I beat guys who was in their 30s and in their 40s. And then I went on to win the Mr. South. And again, at age 18. So because of having great information, because of following very good nutritional guidelines, I was able to super exceed guys who was older than me because of my willingness or my desire to follow the science that had been handed down to me by some of the legends of bodybuilding.
So you were eating whole foods back in the day before it became a thing and a whole marketplace you go to. Back in the day, that's what you grew up on, being in the country.
Exactly. I mean, that's the way we ate. You know, my grandpa had cows, he had pigs, he had chickens, he had all of that. So my food was organic and grown right from the land. And, you know, nothing's changed as far as that's concerned. You know, we don't say protein, carbohydrate, fats. You know, now they say micros and macros. It's the same thing. Tomatoes. They just changed the name a little bit. And that's basically it. And no, we didn't have coaches. Didn't need coaches. We had training partners. You know, we say, okay, man, you look a little bit flat today. You know, so you need to increase your carbs a bit. So we knew what carbohydrates are the life force of the physique to get a nice pump. Protein was there to repair cell and tissue and be a good quality muscle. If you have more protein and not carbohydrates, then you're not going to fill out and develop as you should. So it's got to be a happy medium there. So the science of writing down, we had this little tablet where we would write down what we ate in the course of a day, breakfast, lunch, dinner. You know, how many grams of protein, how many grams of carbohydrate. So that as we look better, we were able to go back and figure out why we were looking better. If we looked a bit flat, we could go back scientifically and say, oh man, look, I've only had 100 grams of carbs and I feel a bit sluggish. So guess what? I need to increase my carbohydrate intake. Oh man, I only had 5 glasses of water today. I need to go back and add more water. So we experimented with nutrition. We experimented with training, not just training and nutrition just pulled out of the sky, but by the guidelines that had been handed down by those before us. I didn't make Lee Haney, not by myself. Neither did Dorian make Dorian by himself. But we did have to find out what worked good in our bodies individually, what made us feel good, what allowed us to grow better and recover better. Those are things that only you individually can know through nutrition. Nobody can do one there and say, bam, that's what you need 100%, because they don't know, because they are not in your body. You're in your own body.
Yeah. Tell me about competition, especially the night of and maybe the days coming up to that onstage competition. I was actually just watching footage of you and Dorian, I think competing at Night of the Champions, maybe in '91. I'm not sure what it was. It was right when the kind of transition happened from you to Dorian. But what's it like when you got the young gun coming up to trying to take your spot? You know your reign is coming to an end, but you're also thinking, no, this is happening when I want it to happen. And then I might reflect on Dorian's mindset, because he's competing with a guy that he's looked up to for 6-7 years. You probably inspired him when he was a kid, and now he's got to beat the guy that's the hero in his dreams, and maybe you can use that against him. So tell me, what's that whole mindset process like, even behind the stage and on the stage?
Well, you know, if you kill the mind, you can impact the body. So this ability to try to psych out your opponents is very important if you can make it happen, and if you can reach into their heads, because we're dealing with several Olympians here. These guys are the best of the best. They're not passive. They're not kids. They are gladiators, and they're ready to cut head off. So how do you sort of move them from their game? I tell you what I did on this particular time, leading up to that last Olympia, is I would wait until, because there's a period of about 20 minutes before hitting the stage that the head MC or the person extraditing would say, okay, guys, you got 20 minutes to go. You want to start warming up. Okay, what I would do is about when I'm feeling that starting to happen, I would ahead of time have my assistant to unroll me while all the other guys are sitting around waiting on the call. So ahead of time, I would have them to take my robe off and I hit a few poses, then they'd throw it back on me. And so it was at that moment when they would see me at the very best I was going to be for that particular day, and trying to throw them off their game or have them to say, wow, man, Lee Haney looks great. Man, I don't stand a chance. That was my mindset, to mess with their heads. And so I had a tendency to do that on purpose. And as I look back and as I've heard later, it worked on several occasions with several of the competitors. Whether it worked with Dorian or not, I'm not sure. But I do feel still, as hard as Dorian tried to say, well, and I've heard him say it in an interview, this guy's my enemy now. I can't look at him in the same light. And that's correct. But I still feel that level of respect and that level of awe was still there. Because it was there for me when I stood on the stage beside Frank Zane, Berto Fox, Roy Callender, and Sergio Olivier. You know, I was the youngest cat coming up, and here I am at the 1984 Olympia. You better believe it was in my head that these guys I was on the stage with legends that I had looked up to and mimicked some of their training routines. So I knew that was in Dorian's head too. So I felt, and I knew without a doubt, I had the upper edge of his psyche. I strongly felt that. Did he look fearful on the stage? Of course not. Gladiators don't show fear. They do what they got to do. But I was fully confident that was going to be my last set and my best set. And I knew that Dorian was coming along, so I had to be at my very best. When you're going for your 8th Mr. Olympia win, you have to do something differently to look differently on that last one, because you got those new mass monster coming, and the audience has been watching you for the last 7 years. So what can you show them that you haven't shown them before? And so at that last Mr. Olympia, I was at 254 pounds, which is 4 pounds heavier than the previous Mr. Olympia. My physique was fuller. I used a training system that I would normally drop about 4 weeks from the Mr. Olympia. When I say training system, the system I generally used was called a 3-on-off-1, which is Monday, Wednesday, Friday off, then Monday, Wednesday, Friday off. I would generally switch from that system to a straight 6 the last 4 weeks. But what I noted in switching to the straight 6 the last 4 weeks in the previous Mr. Olympias, my body stayed fatigued until a day and a half before the actual show, where the muscles really started to fill out and pop. So I took a chance, and I not so much as taking a chance, I just studied closer my body as I was following through on the 3-on-off-1 all the way to the last 4 weeks. And I said, listen, this is already working very well. My muscles are full. My legs recovered with the on 3-off-1. So let's not fix what's not broken. So I stayed with the on 3-off-1, which allowed me to stay fuller, allowed me to stay bigger. When I hit the stage, it was a done deal. Everything was just as I wanted it to be. I filled out and my carbohydrates hit the cells just as I wanted it to be. So all the science worked out. So that last Olympia was my best. But guess what? It had to be the best because Dorian was there. That was my last set, best set too. That's it. Let somebody else fight with this youngster. I'm out of here.
How good is it to have someone like a Dorian coming in at that time and then later going on to kind of change the game with that mass monster style? I mean, I guess at the time, it's probably not a pleasant thing, but in retrospect, it gets you to go the extra mile, doesn't it? I mean, we're only as good as our competitors.
You got that right. Dorian he had size that was unparalleled to anybody else that I had competed with previously. You know,
Style.
And Dorian, size, what I say, I was 254, and Dorian, I believe, at the time was probably about 240, 245, I believe, something like that, in his first Olympia. And of course, he got bigger for his Olympias after that. But that was a whole nother era. My era was one, I would say, more of a classic physique. I had a 31-inch waist, so it was more of a sweeping type of, let's say, Arnold, Zane, Robbie Robertson type of physique. Dorian was one more of a hard, grainy, larger style, which is a different type, but it was then becoming a different era. And that era said, okay, this is what bodybuilding should look like. That is what that era craved. And Dorian was the beginning of that era, because after Dorian, you had Ronnie Coleman. After Ronnie Coleman, you had I can't think of his name, with the blonde hair, the other mass monster. But anyway, they followed in succession with mass and more sides and so forth. So my physique was what it was, and it was what the judges wanted to see for that era. And Dorian in that era was magical for me. It made me Mr. Olympia 8 years in a row. And when the next era came, it was then Dorian's era, which that's what the judges and that's what bodybuilding wanted to see for that era. So all eras have its champions and have the thing that it loves and wants to see, and its fans who wants to see it. So,
yeah. So I texted Dorian to see if he had a question for you before we came on. And again, Dorian's an incredible man. He's become a great friend and a mentor as well. We had him on the show back in 2013, like I said, January. We had him back on a couple years later, and he was trying to transforming in front of our eyes, just becoming this kind of a sage and a real spiritual and a real mentor type man to a lot of young people. And he invited me down to Marbella, and we went down with the film crew, and we made a documentary about him and how he kind of transitioned, because I think a lot of guys get stuck that I'm a bodybuilder my whole life, and they don't know when to kind of transition to someone else. And Dorian did that really well. So I asked him if he had any questions. He didn't say he had a question, but he wanted to say this. So I'm going to tell you exactly what he said. He texted me back and he said, quote, "I never told Lee what a huge inspiration he was to me, especially as a family man and a champion. He was a role model, but I didn't tell him when we met as I was so competitive," unquote. What do you say to that?
Wow, that's quite a compliment coming from Dorian, but it doesn't surprise me. Dorian has always been, to me, a very humble and beautiful, beautiful person. A little funny too, I was when we were in Atlanta at one of the Mr. Olympias, so of course I retired. And Dorian all geeked up and looking good and everything. He says to me, "Lee, what do you think we have another go at it?" I said, "Dorian, are you kidding?" I said, "I'm going fishing, man." That was so funny. But also prior to that, which was brought to my attention by a guy named Peter McGough. Peter McGough is from Great Britain. Peter writes for Flex Magazine, Muscle and Fitness. He's one of the last of the historians of bodybuilding brought past to present. And I was in England doing a guest appearance at one of the shows. I think it was the British Bodybuilding Championship. And so anyway, I needed some carbohydrates, because, we were supposed to eat about every 2 hours or so. And it was this youngster in the audience. that was sort of helping backstage. He was helping backstage, and he had some apples and fruit, and so he offered me what he had, and come to find out by Peter that youngster was Dorian, so it's amazing, the same way with O.J. Simpson meeting Jim Brown, as a kid, and here he is knocking on my door a few years later. So, man, it's an awesome journey, man, to see where Dorian is now, his transition, how he's enjoying life. I mean, I really get a thrill seeing him now into yoga, taking care of his body. Listen, as gladiators, man, we put our bodies through a lot of craziness, and the body don't forget all of that you've left. Your joints still say, hey, man, you remember that, right? Every time you wake up in the morning, you remember all of that crazy squatting you did. I'm still here just waiting to get you. And Dorian has been wise enough to change gears, with the yoga and the cycling, and to bring the weight down so that he can live a healthier life. I myself has done the same thing. I'm into more functional training, using the ropes, using medicine ball, doing yoga stretches, all of those different kinds of things. It come a time when you have to pull the sword off as a gladiator in the helmet and the breastplate and say, okay, now this is for you young guys. Let me show you how to do it now. I've been there, done that. So both of us are more on the teaching scale of showing young athletes what to do and what not to do. And then the other side of it too, we know that we're finite creatures. We're not going to live forever. And if we can use what we've accomplished over the span of our lifetime as a competitor to impact the lives of other young athletes, other people, then, man, what a thrill to do so. That's what's so cool about the second half of the journey, being able to impact those younger athletes and point them in the direction of being successful at it, but also letting them know too that this doesn't last forever, and you need to do it in such a way that you don't destroy your physical body, because at the end of the day, you still want to be functional. You want to enjoy your grandkids as I am. I have 3 beautiful granddaughters. I'm still able to run with them, not full speed, but we still able to do fun stuff together. And I got my health. And that's what it's all about. Your health is your wealth. And you want that at the end of the day.
That's well said. It's interesting now because a lot of the kids these days look back to, Dorian's era and your era, and they say that your bodies look better than the guys do nowadays. And there's this interesting, kind of a throwback to where they're like, man, maybe these guys were the peak of the game as opposed to nowadays. What are your thoughts on that? I know that, as humans, styles always change. You see music and hairstyles and fashion changes. So it's natural that, like you said, the judging of bodybuilding would change. But what do you think of the kids now looking back to those eras saying these guys were better looking than the current ones?
Well, something, it takes time to build a masterpiece. The era in which Dorian and I got our language of training from, we're from that of Arnold and Frank Zane and Robbie Robinson. Form, technique, training principles. Nothing was done overnight. It took time. I mean, I've seen pictures of Dorian when he was like 15 years old. Look how, that amount of time that it was taken to develop his physique. I mean, I was lifting weights when I was 11 years old. Then by the time I was 16, I was competing in bodybuilding competitions. It takes time. What I see now in this era is a lot of the athletes, they train extremely heavy, too heavy, and the training principles in which they adhere to are not principles as it relates to building quality. You see some of these training approaches now where a guy may train once every 7th day. So what in the world is that? And when you look at the physiques on the stage, you see the results of that. You don't see definition as much, or muscle separation, or muscle maturity. It takes time to get muscle maturity. One of my favorites, a guy named Albert Beckles. And we talked earlier, Albert is from Great Britain. Listen, when I won my second Mr. Olympia in Belgium in 1985, Albert was 56 at the time, 56 years young. He looked absolutely incredible, placing second to me. He would have gotten me if I hadn't been in the tip-top shape. But even at the age of 31, when I had retired, I never reached the pinnacle of muscle maturity like Albert Beckles because I was in and out of the game. Well, Albert was still competing when he was in his 60s and looking incredible. It takes time to build a masterpiece. It takes the proper training principles. And to train once every 7th day or once every 5th day, it's ridiculous. Those are the training routines of power lifters who need the extra time for heavy weight training. And if you did more than that, more than 7 days within muscle groups, you can end up with a lot of injuries, which is now taking place with a lot of athletes in our sport, whereby with the 3-on-off-1 or the straight 6, which is a little bit, as I said earlier, tends to overtrain the body a bit. But of course, during Arnold's era, that's what they did. But at the same token, they didn't train as heavy. They trained more frequently, but not as heavy. The 3-on-off-1 give you an ability to sort of train a slightly heavy and still at the same time give the body the extra recovery time. So the lack of the proper routines, the lack of proper training principles is caused the physiques of today to be bigger but lack quality. You see a lot of guys look like mutants. When during the course he was a mass monster, and then as you saw Ronnie as mass and Jay Cutler, you still didn't look like a mutant. You know, things were still proportionate. It was larger, but Dorian physique still had the symmetry and the balance to it. See, that's what you don't see now. You'll see guys with little calves, big thighs. You see a guy with huge shoulders, but then narrow width or high lats, because the ability or the tools or the knowledge to develop a complete physique with everything where it's supposed to be, long lats, full calves, are not there in the training principles that we are here to growing up. Totally different, which also, Brian, is why I wrote this book here called Totally Awesome. I published this book in 1986. I did it again in 1991 after my last Olympia. And I recently did it again last year. Reason being is the lack of proper training information that's out there. I talk about the 3-on-off-1. Why is it better? Why is it better than a straight 7? I talk about the straight 6 and when to use it and then when to back away. I talk about a 3-day power circuit as to the benefits of it. After your body's gone through a competition, it's been traumatized, let's give it enough time to recover. That then and only then should a once every 7-day routine be used, not as a regular part of your daily training. So that's how a lot of these guys get so mixed up, because they follow a lot of these so-called gurus and coaches on the internet who haven't won the Creek Water USA or the Creek Water Great Britain yet. And they adhere to these judges. I mean, these coaches who don't know diddly squat.
Yeah, a lot of that happened today, and I want to get into that for sure. You know, you just broke down exactly what's flawed about, you know, the current bodybuilding today in an amazing way. So thank you for that, Lee. It actually just became more comprehensible to me, explaining those different eras. One of the things you mentioned was Arnold. Now, Arnold had the 7, you got the 8s. Arnold was there back in the early days. When you look back now, where you're at now in 2020, what did Arnold contribute to the sport, both good and bad? And what was it like for you to beat him in that number of competitions? Was that something that was on your mind? It was obviously a big deal for everybody, but what was that like in your own head?
Well, you know, like I said, Arnold really gave the bodybuilding a footprint that is well respected all around the world. He put bodybuilding right in front of the entire world. You know, and thanks to people like Joe Weider with Muscle and Fitness magazine and Flex magazine, Shape magazine, who gave bodybuilding a voice. So that was extremely important. You know, and not to also mention the importance of Naba, you know, who was there, who started the Mr. Universe. All of that started right there in Great Britain. So that was even before the IFBB was formed. So I got to really give my hats off to the earlier pioneers who gave Joe Weider a platform to step from. So you have to give credit to them too. It was right there in Great Britain that it all began to happen. So, but Arnold took it to the screens. He took it to the politics. He did an incredible job. You know, and my being able to come off of some of the successes of Arnold and then take bodybuilding and go, you know, to the next level was also incredible. And I have to give thanks to him for drawing attention to the fact that, hey, bodybuilders are special people. We're smart, we're intelligent, we're approachable, we're a benefit to society. You know, I had my show on ESPN called Lee Haney's Championship Workout. I had a show on the Trinity Broadcast Network, which is a Christian network that's internationally called Totally Fit. I was chairman to the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sport under President Bill Clinton. And I'm also in the International Sports Hall of Fame. So it's a lot of different things that has been made possible through the sacrifice and the success of people like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And where I am now in this era, I'm still enjoying what I do. I'm able to share what I do in so many different ways. And it is truly a blessing to be where I am, you know, to have traveled to more than 30 different countries around the world and to have a fellowship of iron brotherhood with people everywhere is awesome. So hats off to all of the people who made that possible for me to step into the shoes of.
Important that you beat his 7 with your 8 Mr. Olympia championships?
Well, you know what? When I set out, I didn't think of, okay, let's win the Mr. Olympia 8 times. Listen, to win the Mr. Olympia 1 time is a miracle, you know. And after I won the first one, I'm like, wow, I just became Mr. Olympia. I just became the one thing that I desired to do and reading the magazines ever since I was a youngster. And I'm him now. And so, okay, let's train for the next one. And I win that one. Then one of my training partners, a great friend of mine, and we worked out together. He said, Lee, man, let's go ahead and hit this 3. Then guess what? I won the 3rd one because Frank Zane had got 3. I said, well, if I get 3, man, you know, at least I've tied Frank Zane. And then I said, well, let me go for 5. So next thing you know, I hit 5. So, wow, man, you know, Arnold got 6 in a row, and maybe I could hit, tie that record, do 6. So next thing you know, I hit 6, and then I said, okay, let's go 7. 7 is a record in itself. Nobody's done 7 in a row, but still, I don't have the record of 7 overall. So the next thing you know, I hit 7. And at 7, I said, well, man, 7 Mr. Olympics in a row, that's a record, and it's tied for Arnold. And I sat down and I had a talk with my wife, Shirley. And, you know, Shirley was my 2nd grade sweetheart growing up. So we've known each other forever. She's an athlete. She played volleyball. She was in track and field, name it, baseball, basketball. She did. As a matter of fact, she was the president of the sports club going through high school, and I was the vice president. I mean, my wife was the ace Bukun, you know, even back then. And I was under her as a VP. So anyway, I sat down with Shirley. I said, well, baby, you know, we've done 7 Olympias. That's a record in itself. What do you think? You know, should I just, you know, call it quits after that? She looked at me and said, well, What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You gotta do 8. What's the matter with you? I mean, I was almost embarrassed because I even mentioned the fact of stopping before 8. And so with her pushing me and always being there to support me, I said, okay, 8 it is. 8 it is. And so I set out to prepare for that 8th Mr. Olympia. And there she was on stage with me, along with my son, Joshua, who was 3.5 at the time, and my daughter, Olympia, who was about 9 months old. So they all celebrated the Mr. Olympia with me for the 8th consecutive time. Incredible. No, you don't start saying, well, I want to win a Mr. Olympia 8 years in a row. That's a miracle. Just to win it is a miracle. But 8 in a row, man, that's crazy. And which is why after every Mr. Olympia win, I would always bow on my knees on stage. And people said, well, you okay, Leo? You dizzy? No, I'm on my knees thanking God for that moment because it was a miracle in itself.
Amen to that. Wow. Now, I'm going to ask a question. Maybe people have asked you this before, but I'm going to hit you with this. If you had wanted, could you have done the 9th? And also based on the way Dorian started coming up, could you have won it?
You know something? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder as far as the judges are concerned and as far as the era in which the audience is satisfied with, you know? My heart was that, as I questioned, if I sit down with Shirley and say, well, baby, what do you think? You know, is 7 enough? And no, she pushed me to do 8. 7 was really enough for me, you know, but her pushing and inspired me, okay, let's do 8. Let's set this record. And I knew without a shadow of a doubt that 8 was it. I wanted to go no further because let me just say, Brian, after that 7th Mr. Olympia, a week or a few days after the show, the contest, I woke up and my entire body was racked with pain. My knees hurt, my shoulders, my elbows, everything hurt. And I've never felt that before. But I mean, listen, 7 Mr. Olympias, well, 8 really. I only placed 3rd in my first Mr. Olympia in Germany in 1983. So it's really, you're talking 8 Mr. Olympias, not to count the IBB World Championship or the NPC Nationals or the Junior Nationals, all of those shows leading up starting in 1982. So, man, I was in pain everywhere. And I thought to myself, said, man, I've never felt like this. Can I recover? Will I recover? And I gave myself just a little time off, gave my joints enough time to recover, some good food, detox the body. I always believe in detoxing, cleaning the liver, the kidney, the bloodstream, and the urinary system through using a combination of herbs like milk thistle, burdock root, garlic, red clover, all of these different things, and colon cleansing, and just a whole week of fruits and vegetables and water to detox the system. And within 2 weeks, 2.5, 3 weeks, my body had fully recovered and I felt good, very good. Good enough where I said, well, you know something? I'm okay. I can move forward. I can go forward in doing this because I didn't have any specific injuries to joints, knees, hip, or back. It's just everything just hurt, you know. But after the 8 Olympias, I mean, you're traumatized. Everybody who trains for a show on that level, be it bodybuilding, be it basketball, LeBron James, you better believe he wake up in pain. Magic Johnson, all of the guys who were the best of what they did. You know, athletes, you are traumatized. Your body didn't forget none of those, none of that that you had to go through. So with that, I was able to push forward and do that 8th Mr. Olympia. But beyond that, oh no, I wasn't a fear of Dorian Yates or anything. Fear is nothing that real hardcore gladiators have. We don't fear nothing. Fear what? particularly not anything standing on two legs like us. So no, there's no fear factor or no like, oh, Dorian is coming. Nah, Dorian is coming. Guess what? It just made me up my game a little bit more. But I knew at the 8th Olympia, that's enough. You can't stay too long. You know, and again, my philosophy, trained to stimulate, not annihilate. My body was sending me a signal. And I strongly feel that going beyond the biological clock of where your natural hormone levels are in the body and your natural testosterone levels are, you put yourself in danger. I know that every Olympian that went past 40 ended up with injuries, life-changing injuries. I got out when I was at the peak of biologically where my hormone levels and testosterone levels were to repair myself. That hit I took after that the 7th Olympia win was like, okay, we're telling you something now. So you got to know when to hold them, when to fold them, when to turn, when to run away. And don't count your money while you sit at the table, you know?
You're quoting me country songs back to me, Leany. Ali, I love it.
Right, man, the gambler.
That's a good one, man. No, I know what you mean. I mean, when Dorian talked about his 6th competition, I mean, his tricep tendon was barely still attached. You know, he was really at a crossroads whether he was even going to compete, but he pulled it off and put on that gladiator face like you talked about and went on that stage. But Dorian, I don't think ever even vaguely considered the 7th. He knew he was done, the body was done, and I think that it's so taxing mentally to show up year after year after year, and it's one thing to become the king of the hill, but to stay on the hill when all the guys are coming up and the doubters and the naysayers and everything you deal with, it's taxing physically, emotionally, and it sounds like you picked the right time to go, and I think Dorian did as well.
Yeah, man, that mental part is a whole nother level. You know, one of the things that I've always looked to is my relationship with God as a follower of Jesus Christ. Because, Brian, when I was 17 years old, I got on my knees one night before going to bed and I prayed. I said, Lord, if you see fit to make me the best at this sport that I love so much, I'll go before the world and give you the praise and the glory. So I, with all of my heart, believe that my journey actually begun with that prayer, because it wasn't for the sake of glorifying myself, but for the sake of giving God honor and glory. So at every Mr. Olympia, I was on my knees saying thank you. And in every seminar and interview and what I do is a man of God, is about bringing honor and glory to God for impacting the world for good, not about having a big head, about self-gain, self-glory, those kinds of things. No, I'm an instrument to be used of God to do good in the earth, to impact the lives of these young people, the young athletes, to make a difference, to influence. That's what the whole journey has been about. I really feel that the Lord placed me in this position as I prayed to, and then maybe to just watch, will he do what he actually said he would do if I honor him with this blessing? And I've tried my very best to do just that, you know. So I don't think my being Mr. Olympia 8 years in a row with no injuries was an accident. I have no injuries even today. I have to stretch a little bit extra like Dory do. But listen, I am blessed, man. I feel good. I've been married to the same beautiful girl for 38 years. I got 2 beautiful adult kids. I've now got grandyoungins. So, man, it don't get no better than this.
How come you former Mr. Olympias are so wise? That's what I want to know, because Dorian said to me point blank, you know, in the same studio at the end of his second interview, he said, Brian, we are all one, is what he told me. He said, we are all one. It took me a while to figure that out, but once I figured it out, it changed the way I interact with the world. And, you know, it's a similar way of saying what you said, you know, spirituality, religion, whatever you want to call it. It's a lot of that same energy and spirit, but both of you seem to embody it, you know. And I don't know if that's a coincidence or not based on what you've been through, but I heard it from both of you in this studio.
Well, it's amazing what time teaches you, and what Dorian and I both has experienced is being men of the world. There's 190 different countries in the IFBB Federation. We're part of that. I mean, I have friends in Russia and Germany and Switzerland, Sweden, Japan, Great Britain, name a country, Singapore, name a country, Brazil. I've been there, Canada, been there, done that, and have been able to see the world that is round and is not flat, to see that all people have something in common. We all want to live, we want to prosper, we want to love, we want to have a free will to live our lives. And I know that the guidelines to doing so has already been established. I like to say, I don't know what the Bible has to say, which is called the basic instructions before leaving earth. It tells me how to be a man of honor, a man of integrity, a man that imposes of humility, how to treat my neighbor, how to love my neighbor, how to treat my wife, how to raise my children, how to honor those that has been set in authority, and praying that those who have been put in authority and our voting and that kind of thing are people who also honor God, because you can get a nut in authority too, which we see a lot of that around the world. You put the wrong person there, it can really tear up a lot of principles that make people miserable. But we've seen the world and we've been around the world. It really it expands your mind, and it expands also your view of the world. I've had people say, Leah, you're religious. I said, no, I'm not religious. Don't even use that word, not as it relates to me, because it has got a lot of people killed. People are still getting killed for religion today. Let me be clear about what religion is. Religion is a man's way of trying to communicate with God. See? God is communicating with man through fellowship and relationship. As a follower of Jesus Christ, I know, and as I've read and I've studied and I've prayed about, he healed the sick, he gave sight to the blind, he fed the hungry. He did all of those things that are beneficial to humanity, and what draws humanity to say, yes, I love that. I appreciate that. I want that. That was he was the ultimate role model of that. That's who he is. And as his followers, that's who we are to be. Not religious. Religious is messed up because a lot of people use it to overpower demands of other people, or for their own financial or monetary gain, or to hold a particular position and to hold a particular race of people or segment of people down to use control. You see, that has nothing to do with a relationship with God. The Lord wants relationship, fellowship. That means hanging out with him. Said, Lord, what do you think about this? How should I approach that? Oh no, I'm not supposed to act in that way. Forgive me. I'm sort of stepping outside of your will and your way. Help me to do better. That's being a follower of Jesus Christ. And that's what I liken myself as I try to each and every day of my life, not to say I turn my cheek. You smack me, I'm going to smack you back. And I'm going to smack you hard too. Well, you won't think about doing that again. So the Bible is a big book. It's not about, it's not about you being crushed or being weak and puny. No. If you read the whole Bible, God has his gladiators too. Those are our Secret Service guys. Those are our Navy SEALs. Those are people who do what they got to do to protect the well-being of our country and our community.
That's super said. And it's a great point you make about you being able to see the world through Mr. Olympia. And it's something Dorian talked about as well. I mean, that was his ticket out of a pretty bad situation in Birmingham here, where he was really at the bottom. And the only way he could get to see the world was battling his own will and going into that basement gym every day, you know, alone in England while all the guys were on Muscle Beach, you know, posing with the girls, and he was there, you know, pushing himself. And that was his ticket to ultimately this, you know, freedom and spiritual experience that he's gone through. And so I see why you guys both, you know, talk about it, you know, in that way. Just want to finish up with Mr. Olympia, and then I want to hear more about what you're doing these days with the young men and you know, and your charity, etc. When you then retired and watched what Dorian did and then what Ronnie Coleman did, and I had Ronnie on a few months ago and chatted with him, what did you see happen then? Because we saw Dorian show up, I think it was like in '93, much bigger. And then Dorian was big into his conditioning, where he would just cut so much weight and was so lean that, you know, he made other guys have to step up to their conditioning. And then we saw then Ronnie go after that. What was your read on those two eras, that Dorian and then Ronnie?
Well, you know what? Both of them, they were real different, totally different than me. But so was I different than Arnold. You know, Arnold was like 230, you know, 222, that kind of deal. Where here I am coming along 240 up to 254. And so as the science of bodybuilding has gotten better, then here come Dorian. Then here come Ronnie. So the advance of our sport and the advance of nutritional knowledge, supplementation, made them who they are, you know. And so both of them are different eras. You know, they sort of fed upon each other. And I love what I saw happen, man. The thing that I sort of a little bit envious of is, man, they got big checks. Man, I was only getting $65,000. These guys were like $304,000, $400,000 to win a Mr. Olympia title. So yes, I was envious of that. I wish I had got more money, but of course, I only wish he had got more than I did. I mean, you know, so each era has its benefits. And then I was excited for it because the fact that they were able to really go to the next level as far as, you know, what athletes deserve for their sacrifice. You know, you had all of the different supplement companies that was available, you know, starting and during era. You know, during my time, you only had Weider was the only game in town. Then, of course, there was Twin Laboratories who gave me a new start. And so I left Weider and went to Twin Laboratories, which was huge because nobody else has ever walked away from the company who owned all the magazines. So there was Twin Laboratories, who then had Muscle Development Magazine that I then partners with. And they gave me an awesome contract at that time. So I went where nobody else has gone before in that era. But then other companies came around, other supplement companies. Weider was no longer the only game in town. So there was other choices, and these guys were banking big time. So it really gave bodybuilders opportunity to really benefit from all that hard work and sacrifice. So, of course, we're still not making as much money as those in the NBA or the NFL, you know, the major sports. But listen, we're doing a lot better than we did before. And I love all the benefits that comes with the sport of bodybuilding. The brotherhood is huge. But then also, you know, we get to see the world. You know, you can't, if you say NFL or you say NBA, that's not these are neither are world sports. When you say bodybuilding, you're talking about the world. You're talking 191 countries. That says a lot. Then you get to go out and meet and do seminars and all those kinds of things to impact the lives of the athletes, get to shake their hands, create relationships all over the world, which is a riches far beyond anything monetary.
And what about Ronnie Coleman? He hit the 8 like you did. Did you feel like that was a competition or not? And also, you know, he's still going through lots of surgeries. He still trains. You know, what do you make of that whole career? And did he pay a bit much for going hard?
Well, you know, when Ronnie hit that 8th Olympia, I thought that he was gonna break the record and get the 9th one. I was there. to hand him the trophy, had that happen, because his owner was there. He said, records are made to be broken. When I broke his record, I was there to encourage Ronnie, go get it, man. It's yours to have. They're made to be broken. And of course he didn't. But, and then to see later, what I see more from the positive side, what Ron, which is a lot of positive, is his business model. Ron is doing an incredible job with his finances and setting up his business models, with the supplements and so forth. So he's done a fantastic job, because at the end of the day, that's really what counts. All those hard work and sacrifice, you have to develop some type of economy with this. I mean, you can have 8 million trophies. I don't care how much ketchup or tomato sauce you put on them, you cannot eat them. So at the end of the day, you have to be smart enough and wise enough to turn that into an economy to take care of you and your family. Because as athletes, one day you're going to you're going to leave the arena. And what do you do then? That's what's important. That's what Ronnie took care of. That's what Duran is taking care of. Now, the cost that he's paying beyond that, listen, Ronnie is a gladiator. He would have done it whether he got 5 cents or not. And if he could still do it, he would do it all over again. That's just how gladiators are made. He didn't get killed in the arena. He just got wounded. But his mindset is still of that of a gladiator. That's why he's still training and still not saying no to defeat. Gladiators, that's how we are. And that's what I say to people. So, well, Ronnie Golly, man, listen, he's a gladiator. He understood the price and he was willing to pay the cost for it. So, hey, it is what it is. And, he's had several surgeries and so forth. My mindset, I got out early. Ronnie won his first Miss Olympia at the age of 35. I was gone at the age of 31. But as I said, once your growth hormone levels start to decrease, that means the ability of the body to recover start to decrease. And the wear and tear on the joints starts to escalate. And so I think Ronnie finally walked off the stage at the age of 44. In athletics, that's older. But for a gladiator, our mindset is gladiator to the end. And that's Ronnie.
Yeah, there's that old quote by Teddy Roosevelt, there's the man in the stands and the man in the arena, There
you go, baby.
And, and the man in the stands can criticize and comment and point out all the mistakes you made, but the man in the arena is the one who knows what time it is. He's there bleeding, sweating, maybe dying, but they know what it's all about. They know what life is all about, and they have that mindset, like you said.
That's right. To the last breath, man.
It's so true, and it's so true. Lee, the most popular question that we've ever asked Dorian, or the one that people always want to hear from a former bodybuilder, is their thoughts on steroids. And I want to ask you, because Dorian always said something really prophetic in his first conversation with me, and he looked at me and he said, Brian, steroids are used in all sports. And everyone was like, well, what are you talking about? Tennis and golf? And I think it was around that time that the Lance Armstrong thing came out. And he said, you might not see it when you look at a cycling guy. He said, but in bodybuilding, it's just more obvious. But he said, any time where men or gladiators are competing and looking for an edge, it's a possibility that it gets introduced. But he also went on to say, that doesn't mean that if you took it out, the champion wouldn't be any different, whether that's Lance or someone on the stage. Just want to get your thoughts on that component, because I think a lot of people misunderstand it that aren't in the sport. And as Dorian used to say, well, if it was just that, then how come you don't see everybody on the stage? So what is your thoughts on that sensitive topic of steroids?
Well, something, what Dorian said is I agree with it 100%. You see a lot of layman people who are not athletes will say, well, they became a champion because of steroids. No. They became a champion because they're genetically gifted and born with something different, far different than the average person. Gladiators are naturally born. You can't make a gladiator. Steroids can't make a gladiator. It's like putting a $15,000 saddle and golden horseshoes on the donkey. Jackass. At the end of the day, he's still going to be a jackass. He's not going to be an Arabian. That's just his genetic makeup, period. So it's the same psyche and mindset. It cannot make you a champion, as Dorian said. If it could make you a champion, then it'll be millions of Lee Haneys, millions of Dorian Yates, millions of Ronnie Coleman. There's only one of each. Each era made only one. Each era makes every so often Mother Nature say, okay, here you go. Here's your ultimate person or your ultimate athlete for this particular era. You have Serena in tennis. You have Tiger Woods in golf. You have LeBron James. Listen, you can't duplicate people like this. Muhammad Ali. These people are different, gifted. And I feel a gift for an era, a gift for time. And no, steroids cannot make people like that. It can help the body recover. That's the main thing. Can it work without science? No, it can't. You still have to understand protein, carbohydrates. You still have to understand training principles, all of those science. A steroid can actually only give you maybe 10%, maybe even that, maybe 5%. The rest has to be you. It has to be knowledge. It has to be your genetic blueprint that was only given by God. You cannot make that. Super athletes, gladiators, are born. They're not made in a laboratory.
It will probably always be part of bodybuilding because it's so in front of you and so visual, and people want that extra 10%. Do you think it'll always be part of that sport?
I think it'll always be part of every sport. Notice no sports say, well, there was no steroids or antibiotics used, wasn't used. It just says who got caught. So as long as sport exists, they are going to exist. And I think when athletes, there's something going to help you perform for another 3 to 4 years in your sport to take care of your family, then by all means, it's your choice to do that. So for people to sit behind a desk and push a pencil and their way of making a living is totally different than that of an athlete, they have no right to cross that line and be judgmental. I've heard recently this morning, this young lady this person got a TV show saying, oh, shame on them. But wait a minute, you had all these enhancements as far as, your eyes, your lips, your chest, all of these different things. And yet this athlete is trying to make a living to take care of his family, and you're doing it for the vanity. And so how do you judge that? You know what I'm saying? What is right and what is wrong? I see if a guy is going to help him repair, to take care of his family, to stay in the game longer, then there you go. I think if they're going to do it, to monitor, it should be maybe monitored so that all athletes, if they want to, they have the opportunity to it. But when you get athletes that's 35 years old or 30 versus 124, there is a difference because your hormone level is different at the age of 30 than it is at 24. So that's something for the science community to come up with and make a decision on. We just call it these days, when you 50, 60, you call it age management medicine. It's the same thing. It helps to manage your age. It keeps you in the game of feeling good and being functional. And who don't want to feel good and be functional?
Yeah. No, that's true. And what do you think that some of that started spreading like in the 90s and the 2000s into hip hop and all these other things, and pretty soon guys that would never take steroids are now taking them, and you know, now sometimes it's down to the high school kids and they think it's the magic solution. Do you think it's gone too far, or do you think everyone should be able to make their own decisions?
Well, I really think it's gone too far, you know, particularly when you're talking high school and college kids and those kinds of things. You know, I think it is too far. And so many people they want to achieve success quicker without paying the price. But that's America. We live in a microwave society. Everybody want it now. You know, the word delayed gratification, you don't hear about that anymore. It's something that I learned about through my college professor growing up, talking about delayed gratification. It's not going to happen overnight. Let's take your time and do it right so that you're appreciative of the journey. You know, so few people want the journey. Everything is like quick, I want it now, which is bad, you know, which is bad. I think too, you were talking about this coronavirus vaccine that's out here. You know, they speeded the process up to get it out there in front of everybody quick. Well, why did they do that? Well, my theory is that the world economy, financially, the world has been hurt. So they're trying to, okay, we got to get something to get people back to work, to get these economies jump-started again. So, well, what about the end result of this? Did you give enough time to these studies? You know, so all of those things got to be looked at. But, and again, we live in a microwave society, you know, and then you're not hearing any word that relates to, well, listen, the key to fighting virus or any kind of infection is having a strong immune system. So you're not hearing any media talk about the importance of exercise, proper nutrition, detoxing the body to jumpstart the immune system back on the level which it can deal with bacteria and that kind of thing. You don't hear them talking about elderberry. You don't hear them talking about zinc or vitamin D3. You hear none of that. All you hear is, here's the vaccine. Here I've been taking. Okay, now, microwave. And the results of microwave ain't never good.
Yeah, it's something I was frustrated here when, you know, we were coming out of lockdown. They opened up the pubs and they didn't open the gyms, you know, and they nothing was to invest in your health, because the problem with investing in your health is there's no immediate gratification, right? You got to put in the weeks and the months and the years, or to be Mr. Olympia, sometimes you got to take 10, 14, 15 years to build the muscle mass up to win. You guys understand that game, but like you said, more and more these days with the public, and now probably with the internet and Instagram, everybody wants it now. They think they can get it now. People act like they got it yesterday, and it becomes this kind of vicious cycle.
Exactly. That's the problem with society. You know, it takes time to build a masterpiece. It takes time to do anything right, you know, and it takes time to gain wisdom. You know, the people that Doran and myself were when we were 15 years old, you know, I'm 61 and I think Doran is in his mid 50s now. It takes time to gather wisdom and how to use wisdom and when to use wisdom. You know, it takes time to learn those things. And that's why we're where we are now, and why I feel that we are an asset to those in our industry who's wanted to, you know, be where we are or trying to get where we are.
And what do you make of social media these days, the influencers? I mean, obviously you guys didn't have those tools. So you had to rely originally on kind of the Weider monopoly to be in the media, and then for the supplements, you know, you were one of the first guys to branch out, like you said, with another company. But these days, as you can see, is that everybody potentially can be an expert. And I guess there's so many mixed messages out there. What's your read on that? And for young men or young women up and coming, how do they sort through all of the noise?
Yeah, you hit it right, Brian. There's a lot of noise, man. A lot of noise. It's confusing. And I get to hear from a lot of young athletes who come up with these weird type of theories, and they ask me different questions, and I'm wondering, you know, not wondering, I know where they get it from, but, you know, it's amazing how people are easily influenced by things that have no proof. You know, I like to say people drink the Kool-Aid without even questioning where it come from. You know, and that's how society is. You know, which is sad. Let's say the mindset of people are that way. They're easy to follow, and this internet has created a monster as far as those kind of things are concerned, where people read and they experiment on themselves or allow somebody else to experiment on them. And you've had several athletes die, you know, from, let's say, something as simple as using diuretics, you know, to pull the fluid out of the body, which there's other healthier ways to do that. And a lot of them feel like the kind of knowledge that myself or Dorian have, well, it's outdated. We don't do that anymore. You know, this is the new crop. These are the new people. And you look at the backgrounds of these so-called coaches, they never competed in their lives. And they're using a lot of athletes as guinea pigs, you know, because the internet is full of them. All of a sudden, you know, I have what is called the International Association of Fitness Science, which is my logo, which is the first certification organization created by an Olympian. This is the only one of its kind. I created it because there's a lot of ignorance out there as far as training, how to manipulate the body to come by way of results and so forth. So we talk nutrition, we talk training principles, we talk age management, supplementation. We talk all of that. We have two different certifications. One dealing with bodybuilding science. That's where me and Dorian came from. But the other one that deals with functional training. That's overall functionality of wherever you are or whatever you're trying to achieve. For instance, when I trained Evander deals with, well, he wanted to put on weight, but he wanted to make sure he maintained his flexibility and explosive power while doing so. So we had to use weights in a ballistic way and use plyos at the same time, and also create what is called anaerobic threshold training to take his pulse rate all the way up to sometime 180 to 200, then get it back down to 120 for the next round to start. So his functionality was that of getting in the ring, making sure he had enough energy to outdo his opponent and recover in 120 seconds before the next round started. So his training had to fall in line with those kinds of things, not the regular science of bodybuilding. Two different science. So, but you have to have an understanding of that. So having been there, done that for Evander Holyfield, Gary Sheffield, Shannon Sharp, and then entertainers that I've trained like Steve Harvey. Well, Steve functional training was just to be pretty. He didn't want to be an old, bald-headed, fat guy. He wanted to be in shape, look good, maintain his functionality as he hit 50, and now it's been over 12 years to 62 years old. So functionality depends on the goals of that particular person. It's really age management fitness. So in this certification program, we teach on both ends. Ultimate bodybuilding, that's bodybuilding science, or functional training. So we give them specific knowledge as to how to accomplish their goals. And so that is why my organization exists, to give people real been there, done that knowledge. And I've also seen on several other certification programs, I had to actually write training programs with people that's been certified on the other organizations. I'm not throwing any organization under the bus, but they give you a lot of information, but they don't show you how to put it together in a way that it can be used. So that's what we do with the IAFS. And so having resources that can really teach you the real fundamentals of training and nutrition can be a life and death thing. You know, if it's done the wrong way, which I talk about how to, bring your fluid down as you prepare for a show. I never tell you to stop drinking water. I tell you what to do in order to do that, to maintain your mineral levels and a certain amount of water in the body to reach your goal on stage without you passing out and endangering your kidney or destroying your health. So there's ways that can be done, but you got to know the science of how to do it. And that's what I teach. Even in my book, Totally Awesome, I teach that. Matter of fact, we've shipped a ton of these books already to Great Britain and England.
Yeah.
With good science.
You know, speaking of age management, I had Roy Jones Jr. on the show a couple weeks ago before he had his fight with Mike Tyson. And I want to know, what did you think of those 50-something-year-olds getting in the ring? And is it true you're training Evander Holyfield to fight Mike next?
I've had a lot of questions about that, trying to be Evander. The question is no. I reached out to Evander and I asked him, Evander, you planning on fight Mike Tyson? He said, not that I know of, you know. I think that would be an exhibition fight. It would turn into something else. So anyway, but I really admired what Roy Jones and Mike Tyson were able to do, particularly, you know, in their 50s. I thought they looked great. And see, what most people don't understand is these guys are 50, but listen, when you talk about a world-class gladiator, 50 is still 35. Their condition is a whole nother level anyway. So don't think they're the average person. Even at the age of 60, they're not the average person. They are different, very unique. And don't think if you're 20, you can still get in the ring with these guys, even when they're 60, because they're smart. Their fitness is a whole nother level.
What'd you think of the fight?
I thought it was very good. I thought it was very good. I was happy with the results, and it was really an eye opener as to what's possible at that age.
Yeah, I agree. It was incredible. They both put a lot of work in. You know, maybe Mike.
Tell you what, Brian. I'm gonna get back on stage with Duran. I don't care what age.
Let's do it, man.
Told another deal.
Let's do it. I'm telling you, it's happening right here. You heard it here first. It's happening.
No. I don't think nobody want to see me and Duran with our clothes off anymore.
I don't know. You never know. No, I thought those guys looked great. It was a great inspiration, and they took a lot of hard work. Tyson put in the work to get in that shape, man, really did. And they did it for charity. And like Tyson said, much like you just said earlier, Lee, he said, I'm doing it now, not for me. It's not about how great Mike is and how many more cars or boats he can buy. He said, I tried that, and that leads nowhere. That leads to depression and addiction. He said, now I'm doing it for the glory of others and the help of others. And he said, it's a totally different energy now. And you could feel it in Mike. And it was a real lesson, I think, for the younger generation of maybe what life's all about.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, man. It's nothing like giving. You know, as I have HANEY's Harvest House, a mentoring program for young men, you know, giving them manhood principles, authentic manhood principles, and then allowing them to see the lives of other professionals, you know, and then they're doing community service, you know, helping the seniors. So it makes it's beautiful, man. We've knighted several of these young men. We call the program they're on is called Raising a Modern Day Knight. So we've had some of these boys, man, when they were like 6, 7 years old, we've taken them all the way up to 18, 19, 20. Me and my wife were recently out at one of the shopping plazas, and this young man walks up to me and said, hey, Mr. Haney, and gave me a hug. And I'm looking, I'm like, okay. He said, Mr. Haney, it's me, Michael. I said, Michael? He said, sir, you knighted me. I went through your whole program. You knighted me. We have a big 4-foot tall Excalibur sword.
Nice.
That we have a ceremony and we knight the guys. And he was one of them. He said, sir, I'm working in the city now. So I'm doing great. And I just want to say thank you for being part of my journey. And man, let me tell you something. I mean, if it was something to die to go to heaven for, then that was it, man. You know, and to have these young people to come up and to say to you what the impact you have in their life, that's what the whole journey is all about. That's what it's all about. That's the greatest of satisfaction there. Like Mike was saying, it's not about the glory of self or a new car, all of those kind of stuff. That stuff fades away. Only what we do to impact the world for good for humanity and to the honor and glory of God will last.
Took me about 42, 43 years to figure that one out, but I finally got it. Once I got it, I went.
You got it, man.
Yeah.
You got it.
Once you get it, I went all in on it, and it just pays back 10, 100-fold in just great energy in your life, and great things happen to you when you're serving others. And it's the most valuable lesson I think anybody can learn, especially young men and young women can learn. Unfortunately, when you used to turn on MTV, I guess nowadays it's the Instagram. Sometimes you see the opposite of that. It's my jet and my car and my chain and the this and the that. And I think they get programmed that that's what it's all about. But then when you try that out, it takes 10 or 20 years, but you realize that that's not what it's all about. So it's important to try to put another message out there. And I know that's what you do, with the Harvest House.
Yes, that's exactly what we do. We get have other men and other women come in, they talk, they'll share their journey. One of my friends, he left home when he was like 15 years old. He became one of the first African-American carpet manufacturers in the United States. He went to college with no money. He said some of the guys who ran numbers raised a bunch of money and put it in a bag and put them on the bus, got him a ticket and sent him down to southern Mississippi, stand in the dormitory, and all of a sudden the overseer said, son, how are you here? You're not even enrolled. You stand in the dormitory. And he says to the person over it, I don't know. I don't have anywhere to go. They said, well, listen, you need to go see whoever the lady was. I can't think of her name. And so he said he went to see her, and she said, well, wait here till we finish the meeting. Go back to your dorm. He said, I don't have a dorm. He said, I'm just here. She said, well, son, hold on for a second. Call him to the meeting. Anyway, she stopped what she was doing, met with him. Man, long story short, she made sure that young man finished his education free. He did community service, and now he's a millionaire. But she took time to care. But the guys who were running the numbers, up in New York, right, up in the Harlem area, they had enough faith in him, put him on the bus, send him on. Here he is today, one of my clients, one of my buddies I've known for 25 years now. But this just goes to show when you take out your time and pour into the life of somebody, particularly a young person, the dividends is huge. Now my buddy is doing greater things and helping other young people with endowments and all kinds of things because somebody cared enough for him. That's what makes the journey worth it.
If you change a child, you can change a community. And about 10 years ago, I got hooked up with an organization here in London, and I took on a 12-month mentorship process with a 9-year-old boy here with, they called it behavioral difficulties. He was struggling, his single mom, and she had been in and out of prison, and all I did was go spend time with him every Saturday. And he just craved being around a role model. And I'll be honest, we didn't do anything in particular, but we spent time together. So we built things and we learned things, and just being around me just brought everything up, his confidence up, and it was an incredible experience for me and for him. And it makes me already thinking, how can we do more of that in our communities, and how can we just give these young men a little something? It literally changed the course of their life.
Yeah. You're so right about that, Brian. And that alone is going to make all the difference in the life of this young man. He'll never forget that. And we as men have to be proactive in our communities. We have to be gatekeepers. We can't mind our own business. God didn't put us here to mind our own business. He put us here to impact the world and be gatekeepers of the communities, gatekeepers of our families. Where there is not a man present in the home, then we need to fill that gap. And we need to give structure to these young men. I mean, what you see happening in society with our young people is the lack of the presence of a godly man. Now, everything walking with two legs is not a man. When I say a man, I mean a real man that have the principles of authentic manhood. There's a lot of men out there that's terrible for kids, you know, terrible for them to be around. They have no idea why they're here anyway. They're not men on a mission. And any man on a mission that don't have Christ as the head of his mission, he's on a mission impossible, because it's not going to work. So it's important to have the right type of men impacting the lives of young boys. You know, I said in one of my Facebook messages probably about a couple weeks ago, I do not want it to be said that I spent my life on the golf course chasing a friggin' little ball, or on the boat riding up and down the water catching fish, while there's a lot of young men that out there that need to be caught, that need to be saved, that need to have a conversation. You know, I'd rather spend my life pouring into the life of another young man instead of dying from diabetes and having to set my butt and rotting away from luxuries. That's what happened to a lot of so-called men. And at the end of the day, we will all have to give an account of what we did with our life. What was our journey all about? Did we just mind our own business and just take care of us? Or did we impact the world for good? Did we honor God by making the world a better place? Did we influence in the right way? That's what the journey is all about.
Yeah. So I got young boys now, 3 and 4 years old, and they're always watching me, and I always know that. And I'm always thinking, now that I've been fortunate enough to have some practice as a male role model, now it's go time, it's game time. And so I'm constantly watching myself. What am I telling them? What messages am I giving them consciously, subconsciously, with my own actions? You know, how they see me treat others, that they're recording it all. You know, it's like a hard drive. They see everything, and I'm already seeing it coming out in their characters. So it's fascinating, and I agree. I think...
Yeah, man, you're the first Superman that they see.
Yeah.
You're the first Superman and the first role model. Man, that's huge. I never will recall my son when he was, always recall my son when Josh played football going through high school and college, but he went to a college called, you've heard of the Citadel?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
The Citadel.
Yeah, military academy, yeah.
He chose the Citadel for himself. He had offered some other colleges to play football, but he chose the Citadel. And I'm like, man, that made me proud. I didn't push him to choose either one. I was with him on his different visits. And I heard him say when they had the senior game on graduation, they would play over the loudspeaker for the seniors. I heard him say, I'm so glad that my dad was there. He taught me how to be a real man. You know, they had pre-recorded that. And man, when I heard that, it's like, man, wow, I am so glad I was there. And Josh today got two little girls of his own. He have an excellent job. He's a wonderful father. He's everything that I tried to be. And he saw growing up. You know, he saw me honor my wife. He saw me in the place as to where I should have been as a father. He saw those things. And so he's a carbon copy of that. I mean, I stepped back and I looked and said, wow, man, this is so surreal, you know, but be there, raise a modern day knight. Matter of fact, Brian, that's the name of my program, but that program was developed by a guy named C.S. Lewis. You've heard of C.S. Lewis?
Yeah, of course.
The Chronicles of Narnia and so forth.
Yeah.
There's a men's study we did in the book called Raising a Modern Day Knight that I really push or press upon fathers to get, particularly when it comes to raising their sons.
I appreciate that. It's great insight. A couple final things. Tell me, what's Lee Haney doing 10 years from now? What will you actually be doing then, do you think?
You know what, Brian, I've been, you know, a while back, I owned a 40-acre ranch. I had horses, pigs, chickens, rabbits, all of that. So my son and daughters and the whole neighborhood grew up there. We had summer camps. We would have churches to come out and spend overnight. We had the houses, baseball field, basketball court, all of that was happening there. And the airport expanded. And so we still have the program, but we moved it to another place, so it's not as big. So I've been looking, matter of fact, me and Shirley went looking yesterday for some land to maybe create that same type of facility, because I really feel that when young people are connected to the land, there's a level of maturity and respect that they have, you know, and they develop. So that was important for me growing up as a country boy, you know. You got responsibilities. You got to feed the chickens. You got to clean out the horse stalls. You got to plant new seeds. You got a garden. You got to get out there and water the garden, get the weeds out. All of those things created a good fundamental of work and sacrifice and reward, you know, because they would pick the tomatoes or the cucumbers out of the garden. Well, they worked to plant them and they grew. Seed time and harvest. So we want to create that again. So we've been looking, and I'm really into organic farming too, organic food. So that's what I'm looking at now, you know, and the mentoring, growing that, keeping my hand on the pulse of young men. And so I'm excited about that. So I'm about looking, I've been praying about it, you know, so, and I'm being about it too. You know, you just don't pray and sit down. You pray, you go looking. You ask for God guidance as he leads you to the different places. So that's what I got in my heart to do next.
Love that. And that connection with nature, it's so important and so hard to quantify. And we've lost it a lot these days. And, you know, a lot of the answers are in nature. Some people say all the answers are in nature.
That's right. That's right. Like I did a Facebook message yesterday where I was talking about how so many people rely on a doctor, putting their health and responsibility to the doctor. You should be responsible and intentional about your own health. Your health is your wealth, not the doctor's. You know, you got to be intentional and proactive about researching what's good in the way of nutrition. You know, you got to do those kinds of things. And but a lot, and you know, the Bible tells us in Matthew that I think the 9th chapter said, our food is medicine and our medicine is our food. So by understanding the nutritional makeup of foods that are high in fiber, that are good for allowing the body to recover and cleanse the system and so forth, these are life-giving foods, which gives life to the body. Whereby dead foods, dead calories, like processed foods and so forth, dead food create dead bodies. So we have to be proactive when it comes to things like that. Brian, another book I came out with too is Fit at Any Age. This book talks about age management, fitness, age management, nutrition, and age management supplementation. So you have to, managing the age should start time a person enters the world. Time a child is born, the mother, the father should put a program in place to help make sure that young person, up until the time that they leave, has been programmed about the importance of vegetables and fruit and water and proteins like chicken and fish, antibiotic and hormone-free, that's in and out of the system, in and out foods, not foods that hang around in the gut that create chaos in the body and destroy the immune system. So all of that is so important. And so we got to be proactive in teaching that and following those basic principles ourselves. That way we can manage age. See, that's what took place in the countryside. People who live off the land, live in the country, sunlight, natural sunlight, live longer than people who live under a roof with no sunlight, no exercise, eating dead food.
Makes so much sense when you put it that way. Lee, couple final questions about you. What was the best day of your life and the worst day of your life? If you're totally honest, what comes to mind?
Well, you know what, man? I never had worse days in my life. I just haven't. I've dealt with each and day like, well, okay, Lord, what we're going to do about that? You're in control, so I'm not. So my hope and you know, is totally in you. I'm yours, you're mine. I remember I had, I tell you, let's say a trying day when I had to close down one of my fitness centers. I had been, you know, I put it in the part of the community, which is more minority based because the need was there. And I tried very hard to make that center work. For 7 years, it didn't work. I eventually had to close it after 7 years. And I'm thinking to myself, I said, Lord, you know, I wanted to do good for this community. It needs to be there. And I did all of the, you know, the studies, you know, making sure that the traffic count was there. You had your major stores like a Home Depot. Those things was right within a 3 to 5 mile radius. And it still didn't make it because the fact of the matter is when you're talking minority mindset, the minority mindset is more about survival. It's not about the leisure of exercise and fitness. That's why minorities are number one with high blood pressure, heart disease, and those kinds of things, and diabetes, because fitness has never been a priority. We want it to be, but the minority mindset is, listen, if I got an extra $25, I got to pay my rent. I can't go to a gym. I mean, that's a fact. And so I had to close that facility. And then after closing that one, it couldn't have been, but 6 months later, they announced the selling of the building in Atlanta that I had my second facility. So here I am, you know, 2 gyms that are gone. That's more than over $600,000. But you know what my prayer was, Brian? I said, Lord, you know everything. I'm yours and you're mine. I'm not going to file bankruptcy because you're going to do something. I don't know what you're going to do, but you're going to do something. And then jokingly now I say, because if you don't, it's not going to look good. So I put it back in his hand. And lo and behold, he answered that prayer through property I had purchased years ago that was back door of the airport. I had gotten it for $65,000 for 40 acres. And lo and behold, I sold it for $2.4 million. Paid off all of the debts, then allowed me to purchase other income-producing properties, which I still have today, that are bringing, you know, monies and funds in, and I'm able to do a lot of other great things with it, take care of my mom and my wife's mom, and you know, it's just amazing how God worked things out for your good. I mean, I didn't cry about, oh, what I'm going to do, and oh, no, it's the end of the world. No, I said, Lord, I'm yours, you're mine. You're going to do something. I said, I don't know what you're going to do, but then I said, Lord, if you do nothing, I'm still yours and you're still mine. That was my prayer. And guess what? He did exceedingly abundantly above that which I could think or even ask. So I haven't had any worse days because I knew at the end of this journey, even if, you know, my life ends, that's not my worst day. Matter of fact, it's a glorious day because I do believe in heaven. You know, the Lord says that he prepared a place for me. That's John 14 chapter. And if he prepared a place, he will come again and receive me unto himself, so that where he is, I will be also. So that is a promise to those who are followers of Jesus Christ. So we don't have bad days. We have trying days, but no bad days.
That's a good answer, Lee. What scares you?
Well, I'm concerned about the world in which we live in, you know, the politics in which we presently having to deal with. But I also know there that God is in control of that, because he says again in his word in Timothy that he did not give me a spirit of fear, but one of power, love, and a sound mind. So I know that he's in control, but I also know with him being in control, he's going to guide me, lead me, and instruct me that I'm not standing by on the sideline and not running into the fight. As a believer, you run into the fight. You don't accept passivity. You don't look the other way. You lead courageously. You take responsibility. You say, okay, where's the problem? I have a solution. Let's get it done. I'm a gladiator. So no, I'm not scared of nothing. I fear nothing. I fear no man. Never have.
Yeah, I always finish with a few questions. I'm going to ask you those now. If you could pick up the phone and call up 20-year-old Lee Haney, 20-year-old, so you would have won a couple of those early competitions, but you still had a little ways to go for your Olympia journey to start. If you could give that young man some advice based on everything you know now, what would you tell the 20-year-old version of yourself?
I would say you should have used a 3 on off 1 for the beginning. But you know something, the trial and error, that's what our sport mainly deals with, a lot of trial and error. Dorian went through that. I went through that. We had to find out what worked. And all of the error was just teaching moments for us. So we're able to look into the hearts of a young athlete and at the tools in which he used and say, no, you don't want to use that. You want to use this. You don't want to go in that direction. You want to go into this particular direction because we've been there, done that. That's the best teacher. The best teacher in the way of other people not making the same mistakes that you had. So in that respect, that's what I would say to that youngster, but I don't regret anything, as far as training is concerned. All of that made me the person I am today, so you take some of those things away, I may not be the same Lee Haney I am now. I'm married to my second grade sweetheart. I'm so glad that I recognized that cutie in the second grade. I still got her now after 37 years of marriage.
That's a great story.
It was a terrible mistake there if I lost her.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. The second part of that question is best advice you ever received. Is there something that comes out, and it could have been training advice or life advice or anything that comes to mind is, the best advice you ever received?
Well, as a guy said to me, this guy really believed in me and my abilities when I was just 16 years old, 15. He saw me training at the YMCA. And he said to me, young man, you know what? One of the older bodybuilders. He said, you have the potential to be one of the best bodybuilders in the world. Here I am, 15, 16 years old, and he says that to me. Matter of fact, he showed me a few of the training principles that I adhered to when I was real young. He was an older bodybuilder. And then I got a scholarship to play football. And I was all excited about that, 17 years old, 18, get ready to head off, went through high school. I still trained at the YMCA. I still knew him. And I told him, yeah, I'm getting ready to head off to play football in college. And he said, well, okay, congratulations, to you. I had got a scholarship, I was one of the only people at my school to get one. So he was happy for me. But I could tell a little disappointment in his face. He didn't say anything, but it just wasn't like, yeah, nothing like that. And so I went to Livingstone College and went through part of the summer practice. And then I returned home because I had received what is called a basic education opportunity grant, which allowed me. Could you hold just for a second, Brian?
Yeah, sure.
Can I hold just for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, excuse me, just for a quick second, okay?
And Lee's off to do something here. I'm curious what he's up to. But I'm very, very excited. Is this conversation epic or what? What a legend. I'm telling you, you don't win 8 consecutive Mr. Olympias without having some serious wisdom going on and some serious life experience. That is for sure. he's doing? Maybe he's doing some sets or some reps. I don't know.
On the way back, Brian. I'm on the way back.
He's coming. He's coming back.
All right, man. Here we go.
And so you were saying,
all right. So back to part 2 of that. Where did I left off at?
Coming back from that summer practice is what you were doing, and that's when you had that crossroads, I guess, to go football or bodybuilding.
Right. I'll tell you what happened prior to that. I had an injury to my left ankle during that senior year. And although I still got the scholarship, I had recovered, but not fully. I was still having just a little stress there. And doing some of the practice at what it was called Livingstone College in Salisbury, North Carolina, I started to get the bodybuilding bug again. And so I returned home during one of the weekends prior to having to go back that Monday. And I called up one of my guidance counselors. He was also a / principal. And I told him, I said, Mr. Lambert, I said, I really love bodybuilding. I said, but I also know that if I don't take the scholarship, I will not be able to complete my education. My family is not financially able to send me to college. And he said to me, he said, Lee, if it's the last thing I do, we are going to find you some money. He said, I'm going to make some phone calls. So he made a phone call to some of his associates in Columbia, South Carolina. And I received a basic education opportunity grant, which took care of my education, which then allowed me to forego playing football, that particular scholarship. And I returned home to Spartanburg, South Carolina, and enrolled in Spartanburg Methodist College, where I was able to complete my education and put more of my energies into bodybuilding. That guy's name is James P. Wheat Lambert. I'm still in touch with him today. I love him so much. Matter of fact, I have him in my book, Totally Awesome. I talk about that story because he cared about a young man who wanted to pursue something that he had loved and dreamed about. And as a result of that, I was able to do what I've done as the Mr. Olympia. So that was an incredible moment in my life where somebody reached out and they decided to help me. And that's why I have my hand extended to help others. So it was people like that that made all the difference. And so when I turned back to that gym, to the YMCA, back to my hometown, I saw the older guy there. He looked at me and he said, why are you back? I said, I'm back here because I'm ready to pursue bodybuilding. He said, wow, I am so happy. He said, I didn't want to say anything about the scholarship, but I just know in all of my heart that bodybuilding is where you're supposed to be. And you're back here to do that. Man, I'm happy for you. And lo and behold, he saw me win the NPC Nationals and the Mr. Olympia 8 consecutive times.
Wow. Wow. That cycle of mentorship. Yeah, it's started and it continues with you. It's so powerful, Lee. So powerful. Last question to that 20-year-old that's watching us right now or listening to us somewhere in the world. Advice for them. They're growing up in a different world than you grew up in. Like you said, a lot of political division, a lot of craziness on the internet, the social media gets people not knowing what to listen to, what to listen to. What's your advice to them?
Well, I would say be very careful for what you let your mind ingest, your eyes ingest, and your spirit ingest. You got to be very careful and be conscious of that. You have to guard over your mind, guard over your spirit. One of my friends, I talked to him the other day. He's a retired recon Marine. He's 70, he's 10 years my senior. So he's 10 years older than me. He was my training partner for several years. His name is Fred Richards, Master Sergeant Fred Richards. And I said, Fred, where do you get this term, you are what you eat in the company you keep? I said, did somebody teach you that? What? He said, no. I just figured it out for myself. because it's the fact of the matter. You are what you eat. And eating doesn't just mean what you put in your mouth, although that's true. It means what you put in your eyes, what you put in your ears, what you think, and what you put in your spirit. So you have to make sure that the company that you surround yourself with is going to be that of positivity. Stay away from negativity. Stay away from negative people, negative images, and negative things to hear with your ears. It's very, very important. And one of the other proverbs that I use is that what you are Brian, I almost lost you for a second.
Go ahead.
The proverbs I use is what you are is God's gift to you. What you make of yourself is your gift to God. So use your gifts, your talents to be the very best that you can be. Believe that you can achieve whatever it is you want to do, and use them as a gift to do what? Impact the world for good. That's what the entire journey is all about. Believing in yourself and strengthening yourself mentally so that when the naysayers come, you don't buy into it. I never will forget at the age of 19, I'm working at the grocery store, bagging groceries and taking out the people's cars. There was this one gentleman I would often see and service him and taking his groceries out. And I was so fired up about competing in the Mr. Teenage America. And I told him, listen, I'm going to Detroit, Michigan. I'm going to win the Mr. Teenage America. Here I am, 19 years old, and I'm all fired up. And he said to me, son, don't get your hopes up too high. There's people and athletes from bigger cities like California and New York that have all of those support behind them. So I wouldn't want to see you get your feelings hurt. That was his word to me, talking about an energy killer to somebody else, but it wasn't to me, because my dad said to me, son, all men put their pants on one leg at a time. Nobody's better than you. Whatever you choose to do, put your whole heart in it. Don't halfway do anything. That was my father's word to me. And so when this man said what he said, it did not take root in any part of my psyche. It just rolled right off like it was never said. Matter of fact, I thought he was crazy. This guy has lost his mind, because I had so much positivity that was coming my way from the way I was reared, from the positive influences that was in my life. I thought he was crazy. So, man, I went to Detroit, Michigan, competed against over probably 90-something athletes from all over the United States. I came back as a 1979 Mr. Teenage America. I brought that 4-foot-tall trophy back to the grocery store that I work and sat it right in the window. And wouldn't you know, a weekend or so later, this same gentleman came into the store and he said to me, he said, son, I doubted you, but you believed in yourself. He said, you taught me a valuable lesson. I said, yes, sir. With all respect, I said, yes, sir. I was taught not to disrespect my elders, but it had taught him a lesson, but it also confirmed the fact that what my dad had told me, that I can be anything that I wanted to be. And my mom had told me, son, you put the Lord first in your life and it will take you around the world. And guess what? I've been around the world several times.
We're going to end it on that. Lee, you are a legend. That's an incredible story. It's an incredible message to everybody. And, it just makes me think, a man who's been everything that you have been and who's won those 8 Mr. Olympias, you've also got a lot more than trophies. You've got this incredible life experience and perspective that you can, drop on other people out there. And I really appreciate the time. I appreciate you. You exceeded my expectations for this conversation. And your HANEY Harvest House is an incredible foundation. And we're going to donate to it. And I encourage everybody listening to go and donate to it as well. What's the best way people can get to that website and find out about it?
Okay, thanks again, Brian. It's HANEYHarvestHouse.com. That's HANEYHARVES house, HOUSE.com.
Yeah, there you go. And Lee, seriously, I mean, I know Dorian's watching this right now, and I'm sure he's like, man, I knew Lee was a cool cat, but I didn't know, man, it was this good. So I really appreciate the wisdom. You know, a lot of young men will find you because of the physique and the accomplishments, but they'll stay because of the wisdom and the enlightenment. So I really appreciate you, and these messages are so important. I mean, in a way, Lee, we're actually mentoring young men and women all around the world right now with this piece of media we created that's gonna last long after we're gone. So really, I appreciate you, I appreciate the time, and keep doing what you're doing, and promise me the next time we do this in person, either in London or in South Carolina.
I most certainly will. Thank you so much, Brian, for having me on, and thanks for all that you do. And Dorian, please stay off the bicycles. Be careful.
Yeah, Dorian just had a bit of a spill, so sending him all of our love and wishes to recover well. I'm sure he's going to be back out there soon. So thank you so much, Lee. You're a legend, and keep doing what you're doing. We really appreciate you, and I appreciate the wisdom for today. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time on London Real. Take care. At London Real, we believe that individual transformation can change the world. Join us and start your journey today.